Imagine you crouch behind a cold stone wall in Cajamarca, AD 1532. You are one of 168 strangers in a world that wants you dead. The town yawns around you like a mouth waiting to snap shut. You do not feel like a conqueror. You feel like bait. You hear a sound that vibrates in your teeth, distant chanting rolling down the stone roads like thunder that learned to walk. You watch locals glance at your rusted iron armor and look away, as if your very presence invites the god's wrath. You feel the weight of a Mauryan helmet pressing a red ring into your brow. Sweat crawls under the metal, itching, stinging, mixing with the grime of a month-long march. Fear makes the body leak, and right now, you're soaking in it. You step into the plaza. The square mocks you. It sits open, clean, deceptively calm. But calm here is not safety. Calm is the breath held before the scream. You scan the architecture like a thief casing a vault. You measure the doorways. You calculate the roof lines. You look for corners where a horse can pivot hard enough to shatter a man's knees. You hunt for lanes where bodies can funnel until lungs have no room to expand. You feel your eyes twitch, counting spaces where your body might fit if the slaughter starts, because your mind knows the truth your mouth refuses to whisper. If this crowd turns, there is nowhere to run. Your captain, Pizarro, does not offer comfort. He does not pour honey into your ears. He pours orders. He turns the plaza into a kinetic machine of death. He hides horsemen behind walls until they vanish into the stone. He tucks footmen into shadowed entrances, blades hidden like teeth behind a polite smile. He angles small cannon pieces down narrow approaches, aiming not at an army, but at a human tide. You feel the plan settle in your stomach like a swallowed rock. This square is not a meeting place. This square is a kill box. But the box only works if the lion walks inside. You watch scouts rush back, their chests heaving, their voices cracking. The numbers don't match. 5,000. One spits, eyes wide with panic. No, 10,000. Another insists, grasping at your arm, begging you to believe the math of death. Someone swears the main army waits just outside the town, hidden in the tree line, ready to flood the gates. You don't know if what approaches is a diplomatic parade or your execution party. Therefore, you clamp your jaw shut. You keep your mouth closed because the slightest tremor in discipline becomes a crack, and cracks in this wall become floods that drown everyone. You crouch where you are told, behind a wall that smells of old smoke, damp stone, and centuries of alien history. You feel grit grind under your fingernails because you are digging at the ground without noticing. A match cord burns near your hand, a thin, living snake of ember that smells of sulfur and charcoal. You keep it alive like you keep your own heartbeat alive. You guard it. But the ember is a traitor. It can glow too bright at the wrong moment, giving away your position, or it can die in the damp air at the worst moment, leaving you holding a useless club. Therefore, you shelter it. You breathe away from it. You blink away the stinging sweat that wants to fall directly onto its heat. Your mind drags you back to the march that brought you here. Your body carries the memory of the Andes like a bruise. The mountains do not care about your banners. They do not care about your emperor or your Christ. The path squeezes into cliffs that allow only one boot at a time. You remember the thin air clawing at your lungs, making each breath shallow, angry, insufficient. You taste the copper of your own blood when you breathe too hard. Your tongue goes dry like an old rag. Hunger turns gentle men into wolves. Hunger turns proud men into scavengers. You remember chewing leather straps just to make your stomach think it was working. You watch a comrade boil scraps of hoof and hide that should never enter a human mouth, and you understand the dark truth. Survival does not ask permission from dignity. Every step of that climb is a gamble with invisible rules. Powder must stay dry, but the mist creeps into every fold of your rotting clothes. Matchcord must stay lit, but the wind on the high passes snatches at the flame like a pickpocket. Horses must survive narrow tracks, where one slip becomes a scream that fades into silence thousands of feet below. You feel the horse's ribs between your knees. You hear its breath shorten. You don't know if the animal breaks before the enemy does. Therefore, you pat its neck, not out of love, but out of desperate utility, rubbing the sweat-streaked hide as if your touch alone can convince bone and tendon to take one more step. Rumors travel with you like fleas, burrowing into your skin. You hear that a civil war has just torn the Inca Empire's heart open. You hear that Atahualpa wins, that his brother loses, that victory sits on a throne of fresh bones. But victory is a double-edged blade. It can mean strength, a consolidated army flushed with success. Or it can mean exhaustion, a fractured nation ready to crumble. Or it can mean fury so sharp it cuts the hand that holds it. You can't tell which one awaits you. Therefore, you keep checking your blade. You run your thumb along the steel, not because it needs sharpening, but because checking gives your hands something to do besides shake. Cajamarca appears, and the trap shifts from physical to psychological. The plan requires the emperor to walk into this square of his own free will. Therefore, you must look harmless. You must look like guests. You must swallow your terror and act small. You hide your weapons like fangs behind a lip. You see a few of your men try to smile at the locals. The smiles look like rictus cramps, stripped of mirth. You hear Spanish prayers whispered too quickly, rattling out like dry peas, as if God is a door that must be slammed shut before the devil follows you inside. The most dangerous trial is the silence. You crouch. You wait. You are forbidden to fire. Your finger rests near the trigger mechanism, the serpentine lever cold against your callus. Every nerve in your body screams to act, to run, to scream, to do anything but wait. Waiting feels like drowning with air all around you. You feel sweat run into your eyes, stinging, blurring the world at the exact moment clarity is life. You want to wipe it away, but moving too much feels loud. You imagine one stray shout, one nervous cough, one horse stamping its hoof on the stone, and the crowd outside becomes a flood. The dam breaks. You are crushed against the stone until your ribs become powder. Therefore, you freeze. You listen. Listening is the only weapon allowed right now. The sound arrives before the sight. It hits the soles of your boots first. Sandals slap stone in a steady, rhythmic ocean. Chanting rises and falls, breathy voices layered like waves that refuse to recede. You hear flutes, high and piercing. You hear drums, the deep pulse of a ceremony that feels older than your own religion. But ceremony does not mean mercy. Ceremony can be the skin stretched over a blade. You smell incense, heavy and sweet, mixing with the scent of thousands of unwashed bodies. Your stomach turns. The scent feels like a funeral that has not decided whose body it claims yet. Then you see the first line enter. Attendants. Nobles. Men in cloth so bright it hurts the eye, feathers catching the sun for only a heartbeat before your gaze snaps to the center. The procession expands. The plaza starts to fill. People move with a discipline that looks like beauty until you imagine that discipline turning toward you with spears. You see faces painted in patterns you don't understand. Eyes focus forward, passing over your hiding spot, not looking at you, because you are not the point of this ritual. You are dust. The point is the man who arrives last. Atahualpa enters. He does not rush. He owns the time. He owns the stone. You see a litter rise on shoulders, and the shoulders do not wobble. They move like a single, multi-legged creature. You see gold flash. Not coins. Not jewelry. Plates of it. Sunlight made solid. You feel the urge to stare, because the mind wants to understand how an empire makes a man look like a god. But staring is dangerous. Staring invites awe. Awe invites hesitation. And hesitation gets you killed. Therefore, you force your gaze to the practical. You look at the poles. You look at the bearer's legs. You look at the space around the litter. You look for the narrow path between bodies where a sword can fit. Many carry ceremony, not steel. You see hands full of fans, ornaments, staffs of wood and copper. But your fear doesn't shrink. Because you sense what you cannot see, the Real Army. The killers. They wait outside the town. The terrifying part stands just beyond these walls, close enough to storm in, close enough to turn Cajamarca into a mass grave if the emperor slips away. You don't know if sentries already move into position behind you. You don't know if horns wait to sound the attack. Therefore, your breath stays shallow. Deep breathing feels like a luxury borrowed from a future that might not exist. A friar steps forward, Valverde. He looks small. He looks absurd in front of a living god. You see him raise a book as if paper can stop spears. He speaks words that fly into the wind, words you cannot catch. The air is too full of a language you don't speak, too full of tension you do understand. You hear a translator stumble over concepts that don't exist here. You hear voices rise. Your skin tightens across your back. A book is offered. Rejected. Maybe dropped. Maybe thrown. In the fog of shouting, your eyes play tricks. You can't swear to what happened. Only your body knows the truth. You feel the air tighten like a drawn bowstring about to snap. But a bowstring only matters if someone releases it. The signal hits. A cannon cracks. The sound is not loud, it is violent. It punches the plaza in the chest. The plaza flinches. Birds explode from rooflines, screeching. People jerk their heads as if slapped by an invisible hand. Smoke blooms instantly, bitter and oily, crawling into noses, coating tongues with the taste of sulfur. You taste black powder and your throat hates you for it. Therefore, you move. Waiting ends the moment thunder speaks. Horses surge from hiding like beasts from a nightmare. You see them burst from doorways that moments ago looked harmless. Hooves strike stone and the impact vibrates up your shin bones. The locals have never seen these creatures. To them, horse and rider are one monster, a centaur of iron and hair. The crowd does not have time to understand. Panic outruns thought. Bodies scatter, but there is nowhere to scatter to. People collide. They stumble. They fall. Those behind keep coming because fear shoves harder than hands. You hear screams pitch upward, high and thin, then vanish under the roar of hooves and Spanish shouts. You fire into the mass because training replaces conscience in a heartbeat. The harquebus kicks your shoulder like a mule. The stock slams into your collarbone. Smoke blinds you immediately. It burns your eyes. Therefore, you blink fast, tearing up and aim again at shapes that move through the gray fog. You smell burned hair. You smell burned cloth. You smell the sharp, metallic copper hint of fresh blood. Someone near you reloads with shaking hands. Powder spills from the flask, therefore curses spill too. You don't know if the next second brings victory or a bronze axe between your shoulder blades. But the true target is not the crowd. The slaughter is a distraction. The true target is the litter. Therefore, your eyes lock on that moving island of gold and authority. You see bearers strain as people slam into them. You see attendants try to hold the ring of order intact, but order fractures under terror. The litter shifts. It pitches like a boat in a hurricane. The bearers' feet lose rhythm. The emperor's height above the others becomes a beacon. It also becomes a trap. You run. Not forward into glory, forward into a jam of meat and fabric. Your boots slip on scattered sandals. You slip on something wet. You feel hands grab at your legs, not to attack, but to beg for balance, to beg for survival. You shove through because stopping equals death. Elbows slam into ribs. Someone's fingernails rake your wrist, tearing skin. You hear prayers in a language you don't know, but you understand the tone perfectly. It is the tone of someone falling into a pit. You smell sweat and fear and powder smoke until they become one choking flavor. The air turns thick, liquid. Breath becomes labor. You feel heat under your armor, and it becomes a furnace. Your vision tunnels. The periphery goes black. Only the litter matters. Hooves thunder close to your ear, and you flinch because one wrong step places your skull under a horseshoe. But you keep moving. The plan depends on speed. The plan depends on audacity. You reach the litter. Hands grab poles, your hands, other hands, too many hands fighting for purchase. Someone falls. Someone screams as a sword goes through them. The litter tilts violently. Gold flashes as it tips, and the flash feels obscene in a crush of dying flesh. The bearer's shoulders collapse one by one as panic breaks them. You see Atahualpa's face suddenly close. He is human clothes. The shock almost freezes you. He looks like a man, not a myth. His eyes snap to the chaos, searching for meaning, searching for his generals, but meaning dissolves in smoke and noise. Pizarro is there at the center of the storm. He is shouting to take him alive. The words cut through the screaming because they are insane. Alive? In this meat grinder? But the insanity is the strategy. Therefore, steel swings not to kill the emperor, but to clear the hands defending him. You see blades slash at attendants who cling to the litter like barnacles clinging to a ship in a storm. They do not fight back with weapons. They fight with their bodies, offering arms and chests to the steel to protect their god. Blood sprays hot. It paints sleeves, faces, the very air. You feel droplets land on your cheek and you cannot wipe them away. The emperor is seized. A god is pulled from a chair into grip and muscle and breath. You see arms hook under him. You see someone grab his garment, tearing the fine wool. You see his body jerk as the world yanks him downward. He does not float. He does not vanish. He is flesh. He is weight. Therefore, he can be taken. But taking him alive means the crowd must not kill him in the crush. Therefore, men form a ring. You shove bodies back with sword flats and fists and boots. You hear skulls crack against stone. You hear someone cry out for mercy and receive a knee to the mouth instead. The plaza becomes a machine that runs on terror, and you are a gear inside it, turning whether you want to or not. The Inca attendants fight with hands, with sticks, with whatever dignity turns into when weapons are not present. They claw. They bite. They pull hair. The fury is personal because this is not a battlefield to them. This is the universe collapsing. You feel a hand clamp onto your forearm with desperate strength. You twist. You slam your elbow down. The grip breaks. But the hand leaves skin behind under your nails. Pain blooms. Pain becomes another voice screaming for the fight to end. Somewhere a bell rings, maybe a church bell, maybe a signal, maybe your mind making noise to survive the trauma. Somewhere another cannon cracks, and the crowd jolts again, a living wave that surges and crushes its own. You see bodies pile at a doorway. The pile rises. No one can reverse the flood. People try to climb over the fallen, therefore people become steps. You hear a wet, muffled sound when a chest compresses too far. It is a sound you will never forget. You drag the emperor toward a doorway. The doorway looks small. Therefore, it looks like salvation. But it is also a choke point. If the mass surges right now, everyone in that doorway dies. You don't know if the outside army already charges. You don't know if a single thrown stone finds Atahualpa's skull and ends your leverage. Therefore, shields lift. Bodies hunch. Men use their backs like walls. Atahualpa stumbles. He is not carried now, he is dragged. You see his jaw set. It is not set in terror. It is set in disbelief. He looks as if the world breaks a rule he never imagined could break. You feel the audacity of it like a sickness, taking the center of a cosmos with sweaty hands and sharp steel. But the sickness does not stop the feat. Therefore, you shove forward again. Inside the building, the air changes. Sound dulls. The roar outside becomes muffled, like the ocean heard through a thick door. You still hear screams, but they feel distant. Therefore, they feel unreal. Someone bars the door with a heavy beam. Someone breathes like a drowning man, sucking in air in ragged gasps. The emperor stands, then sits, then stands again. His body refuses to accept stillness and captivity. You see his eyes flick around the room, measuring the walls, measuring the men, memorizing faces. You feel watched. The feeling is worse than danger. It suggests judgment. Outside, the plaza keeps killing. The trap is simple. Horses and steel create panic. Panic creates a crush. The crush prevents coordinated resistance. But simplicity does not mean mercy. You hear hooves continue to thunder. You hear blades ring against bone. You hear gunfire puncture the air in harsh bursts. You smell smoke seep under the doorway like a ghost. You don't know how many die out there. Therefore, you do not ask. Asking feels like inviting the dead to answer. But the most frightening part is what does not happen. The outside army does not pour in. The town does not instantly become a furnace of spears. You expect a counterstrike that erases you. It does not arrive, not yet. Therefore, a new thought crawls in, slow and poisonous. The hostage works. The empire hesitates because its spine sits in a room with foreign hands on it. Time stretches. It is not peace. It is a knife held still against a throat. You hear messengers run, footsteps, shouted words, doors slamming. You sense bargaining beginning like a fire that starts as a spark behind a wall. Atahualpa speaks. Even without understanding every word, you hear command in the tone. He orders calm. He orders restraint. But orders must travel through fear. Therefore, the orders twist as they move. You stand guard. Your arms tremble now that the sprint ends. Adrenaline drains, leaving the body heavy and sick. You feel your shirt stick to your back with sweat and blood that is not entirely your own. You try to swallow and your mouth tastes like ashes and copper. Someone laughs once, high, cracked, because the mind cannot store this much terror without leaking it somewhere. The square outside turns quiet in patches. Not because violence ends, but because the living run out of breath. You step to a slit of window. You see the aftermath in flashes. Bodies twisted in unnatural shapes. Ornaments scattered like trash. Dropped fans. Broken sandals. The finery of ceremony lies in the dirt like shed skin. You feel your stomach lurch. You want to look away, but you cannot. Therefore, you stare until the scene brands itself behind your eyes. The dust settles like guilt. Silence arrives in a way that feels wrong. Silence is supposed to mean safety. Here, silence means the screaming stops because throats fail. You hear only groans. You hear the occasional sob. You hear the clink of metal as someone steps over something that used to be a person. You feel the temperature of your own skin now. It is hot and cold at once. Your hands shake violently. You look down at those hands. You realize they did it. Not Spain. Not history. You. A handful of men with steel, horses, gunpowder, and a plan built on timing. But the realization does not bring triumph. It brings vertigo. Therefore, you grip your weapon tighter. If the mind starts asking moral questions too early, the body loses the will to stay alive. Atahualpa lives, your prisoner, because living hostages are leverage. You feel the shift immediately. Outside the town, the Inca are still thousands. They are still armed. They are still capable of tearing you apart. But now they must ask themselves if attacking kills their world center. You don't know what they decide. You don't know if an arrow slips through a window and ends everything. Therefore, every creak of wood sounds like doom. Negotiation begins. It does not look like a treaty. It looks like greed waking up. You hear talk of a ransom. But ransom feels too small a word. It is measured in rooms and walls and height to be reached with metal. You watch messengers come and go. You see carriers arrive with plates of gold, with vessels, with ornaments, with art that once belonged to temples and lineages. The wealth glitters. But the glitter does not warm you. It feels like a fever. Therefore, eyes stay fixed on it even when the soul wants to vomit. The room begins to fill, not with air, but with promise. Gold stacks, silver stacks. The pile grows like a mountain that forms overnight. You feel the madness of it. More wealth than hands can carry. Therefore, more temptation than honor can survive. Men argue in low voices about shares. Men look at each other differently now. Calculating, ranking, resenting. The hostage is not only leverage over an empire, he becomes leverage over each other. But the fog of war never clears. You don't know if Inca generals plan an assault anyway. You don't know if Atahualpa plans a reversal with a single command once released. You don't know if keeping him alive is wisdom or a delay of a larger death. Therefore, guards increase. Suspicion grows. The air inside the town stays tense, stretched thin as wire. You catch glimpses of Atahualpa in captivity. He does not crumble. He watches. He speaks. He bargains. He laughs at times. Therefore, he terrifies. A man who laughs while caged suggests the cage is not the end of the story. You feel that danger is not only outside these walls. Danger sits in the room and learns you. The days press forward. The weight of what happens in the plaza does not lighten. Some of the dead are carried out. Some are left. The smell changes. It turns sweet and rotten. Therefore, it crawls into sleep and ruins it. You wake with a start, hand on blade, because dreams are full of hooves and crushed ribs and a face that becomes human clothes right before it disappears. This is the true return from the ordeal. It is not marching home. It is living inside consequences. Cajamarca becomes a story people tell with shaking hands. The town square becomes a lesson carved into muscle. You feel it in the way men flinch at sudden noises now. You see it in the way laughter sounds forced. You sense that something breaks that cannot be repaired with gold. The verdict forms in your mind like a bruise. An empire's command becomes a single point of failure. The plaza proves that strength is not only numbers. Strength is coordination. Strength is the ability to decide together. But seize the decision-maker, seize the signal, and a larger force can freeze, unsure whether action equals betrayal of everything it worships. Therefore, 168 men become enough. Not because they outfight thousands, but because they interrupt the empire's ability to move as one body. You step back in your thoughts. You recognize the pattern revealed by your own terror. Systems collapse when coordination collapses. A single node, leader, signal hub, communications center, key executive, can be worth more than 10,000 enemies in the field. Cajamarca is not just conquest. It is the anatomy of shock tactics and hostage leverage and decapitation strikes, played out in a town square, in AD 1532, with you in the mud. But the mirror cuts both ways. Therefore, the question turns toward now. You see modern crowds guided by voices on screens, by leaders on stages, by channels that tell people where to look and what to fear. You feel how quickly a group becomes a stampede when certainty shatters. You sense how often power prefers the shortcut, sees the coordinator, break the network, and the rest stumbles. Therefore, Cajamarca does not stay in the past. It breathes inside boardrooms, capitals, and command centers, wherever a system depends on one throat to speak and many bodies to obey. The legacy is not a number or a name. It is a moral crossroads that still waits in the same shape. You stand again in that plaza in your mind. You feel the cost counted in bodies, in broken ritual, in a hostage's silent stare, in the way greed wakes inside men who claim holiness. Therefore, the final question refuses to be Googled because it belongs to the private place where courage and conscience wrestle. If survival demands grabbing the spine of a world, if victory demands taking a human symbol and turning him into leverage, do you do it? And if you do, what part of you survives the winning?